Hi, in this video, I'll be demonstrating how to install this rear spoiler lip or bumper lip. It's this piece here at the bottom. Right, I purchased it from CSR Automotive. So it's just the highlighted section. Now, if you have a look at their demo vehicle, you can see there is no tow bar on this vehicle. Now, when I installed it, I had to cut some of the fiberglass away, and I'll be demonstrating this step by step. But keeping in mind, I did not remove the bumper. If you do not want to take off your bumper, you can use my method to install it, and it is strong. We are just fitting this bottom lip bumper here. The problem is there is a tow bar which is in the way, so we're just going to cut out the part where the tow bar is fitting. Right, I'm just using a correction fluid, Tippex. Right, so these bolts from the tow bar are colliding with the bumper here, the lip bumper here, so I'm just going to mark it off there. Okay, it's getting there. Just need to cut that a bit more. Right, I'm just going to use a Dremel to just cut this away a bit more neatly. Right, now in our case, unfortunately, it's still not cut enough. We're going to have to cut around this tow bar over here because you can see there it's not engaging. There's too much of a gap, and I don't want to put too much force on here. So what we're going to have to do now is just cut all around here. All right, so I've just marked it off. You can see that we can make it flush here, and now there's a bit of space here, a bit of free play here. So if the tow bar moves at all, even if it's 1.5 millimeters, it won't move the bottom lip bumper. Right, so now we can take this for spraying. Right, over here I have the spoiler lip or bumper lip, and you can see it's been sprayed. Because I'm going to be fitting this alone, I've set up a chair with a yoga block and some trestles. Now over here I have a sock just over the stand so that it doesn't damage the lip here. Now it's not exactly the right size, so it's going to require me to bend the bumper a little bit, and I'll show you that in a second. But what I'm trying to do is first seeing if it does fit at least like 95%. Also, this is deformed over time. You know, the car's had a few fender benders, things like that. So I'm checking for that. I want that to be flush. I also want it, as you can see, my hand. There shouldn't be a place here where sand or sediment can gather, as you can see. So that is correct. It's a little bit protruding there, but I will align it properly once I fit it. Now over here is where we can get into trouble. You can see there's a line here. Now if I shift this any forward, then what's going to happen is on the wheel side, it's going to be even more forward. So on the wheel side, you can see that it's already got a slight lip there. It's probably about 2 or 3 mils, and over here it's actually behind the bumper line. So that means that if I get this exactly right, it's going to protrude by the tire, and this is where you have to make a decision in terms of which side is going to be correct. Then what also needs to happen is the back needs to align. Now this is just unfortunate, these are some scuffs, but as you can see this line needs to be straight. But the good thing is this part of the bumper is quite malleable. You can bend it, so I'm not too worried about this part, especially at the back here. As you can see, this is totally sticking out. There's like at least 2 centimeters over here. Now I can't align the lip to the bumper taking this as reference, because as you can see this can just bend. So this I can just bend into the lip, so I'm not worried about this protrusion here. Right, just having a look at the tow bar side, you can see that this is actually fine. There's lots of space there. Only problem I'm going to have is there's no attachment point over here. As long as this bend of the bumper aligns with the bend of the lip, I should be fine. So I just need to push this a little bit forward. And then if you look down the line here, this is incorrect because you can see that I can get my finger in here. So this would be wrong. So what would have to happen is it would have to shift in that direction. But keeping in mind that if I shift it in that direction, it's going to shift the whole lip even on that side. So what I have to do is I almost have to mount it. Then at this point, this will be lost. Then I will come and mount this once the other side is mounted, and it will bend inwards. So I'll actually have to bend this inwards, but I can't do it now because I'll lose the alignment on the other side. I can already see that the lip is going to be under a bit of pressure. It's not a lot, it's just maybe half centimeter, so 5 mils. And I will have to just bend the bumper just a little bit. But as I said, the back part here, that's nothing. That's easy to bend. Most important are these edges, that they are aligned correctly. And then over here, we don't want it to have a protrusion. We don't want it to go like that and then like that. All right, so the next step now is to drill holes. Right, I'm going to be using these retaining clips, press pins, whatever you want to call it. Right, there's a variety here, but I'm going to be using this one. And this one, as you can see, there's no screwdriver head. There's no space for a screwdriver. I just have to depress it in, and you can see it swells up. And if I want to open it, I just have to pull the back. So I can even do this with my fingers, and that's what's important to me because I won't have access. And I'll show you now why I won't have access. So that's why I'm using this type of press pin. Now the size is 7.7. So if I drill a 7.5 millimeter hole or even an 8 millimeter hole, it'll be fine. Right, I'm going to do an 8 millimeter hole. Right, having a look at this lip, you can see that the bottom side is closed. So I have to push in the push pins from here with my hand. So that means I'll have to go like this. And that is why I don't want to use a screwdriver, because if I'm using a screwdriver, there's no space here because of this bottom section. I can't cut away this bottom section because it will weaken the lip considerably. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill in specific places along the lip, which is going to be the size 8, and then this will be pressed in from underneath, and it will align with the bumper. And I'm going to drill this shortly. I'm just going to have a look at the underside of the bumper to see where I can drill, because maybe there's a space here, but maybe on the underside of the bumper there isn't any bumper here. You'll find that on your vehicle you might find that the bumpers only say this wide while this is wider. Alright, so I'm on the underside here and I can see that there isn't much space here, so I will be drilling quite close to the side. Also I can see this is quite thick, so I think I have chosen the right retaining clip. Now notice I come over here, it's also quite narrow. Then over here by the bumper I've got lots of space, but over here where the exhaust is, notice there's very little space here. And then it's into the foil. And notice that the bumper can move, but the foil is stuck. So we've got to be careful with that. You might also notice that this is an aged bumper, and you can see it's deformed here. So I'll have to take that into consideration. That is why I'm going to have quite a few press pins to make sure that it fits evenly. All right, checking out the other side. Okay, just over here, there's no point in drilling, but over here, there's lots and lots of space for me to drill holes. All right, I'm going to use an 8 millimeter because I don't really want to battle too much here. So yeah, that's better. Now it can fit in perfectly. I don't need it to be extremely tight. Once I press that, it's obviously going to expand. So what will happen is it'll be from the inside, and then when I depress it, it's going to pop open. And there you can see how it's popped open, and that will hold it in place. Obviously I'm going to put some sealant here as well. Now I'm just going to remove this. Now when that's pressed, if you want to open it, you can take some side cutters, and there you can see how easy it is to just pop that open. Also you can use your flat screwdriver. This is the reason why I'm using just the push pin rather than the screw-in one, because I won't be able to get a screwdriver in here. Right, so now I'm going to drill all the holes. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use either masking tape or an insulation tape, and I'm going to put it underneath here. Then afterwards I'm going to take a pen, and then I will mark off on the tape where the holes are. So now I'm making final decisions. Right, so I'm going to decide now exactly where it must be. This is where you would really want to have someone to help you. In this case, I'm using these trestles and they're pretty tight, as you can see, and I've got the sock on them, and I'm going to make my final decision. Now, as I said earlier, the problem is that it does not quite align properly, because if I get the line exactly straight from the bumper to the lip, this part here pops out. So I'm going to have to make a decision here. I don't want this to pop out. This will look worse than this being a little bit back. Right, I'm just going to allow it to be about 3 mils out. That's all. So it's just a little bit of a protrusion here, ever so slightly. So if you look at that, you wouldn't really notice. And that looks fairly straight. But very important is this corner here. I need it to be, yeah, that's right. That's very important. As long as this is fine, then I can live with a little bit of imperfection there in order not to have that protruding. So it's a bit of a compromise here. Now all I'm going to do is go from underneath and color in where those holes are. Just do a final check. Remember, I'm only coloring in this side. I'm going to drill this side, place this in place, then I will go and do the other side. So I'm actually doing it side by side. Right, so you can see the holes, they're there, and all I'm going to do is just bend this pen, right, and that's it. And all I'm going to do is go there and color it in. Now, I'm not moving that lip at all. It's held in place. You could even have put some glue here when you did it, some double-sided tape to make sure that it doesn't move. Right, so I've colored in that one, and now I'm going to go and do all of these. Every now and again, just check that the pen is writing, because it is upside down. And there you can see I'm coloring in each one of these spaces. Another option is to take a lead pencil or a felt tip pen and also just color it in. I'm just making doubly sure using my pencil. Right, so there you can see the markings. Pretty clear. And all I need to do now is drill them. Now, before drilling, just make sure there's no pipes or anything here that is significant, or anything that will cause damage to your car, PDC wires and things like that. I know this car really well. I'm just going to drill here. Now, I first start with a smaller drill bit. So this is a 4mm. Right, once the pilot holes are drilled, I can now come with the size 7.5mm or 8mm, depending on how snug you want the fitting. Alright, so the push pin is a 7.6mm, but I'm going to use a 7.5mm drill bit, and I'm just going to do a test. Okay, so yes, it is pretty snug, but yes, that's right. I want it pretty tight. So if I press that, yeah, no, this is going to be tight. Start smaller, and if it's too tight, then you can always drill it wider. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill all these at 7.5mm. Right, so I'm going to put the tape on the other side now. Right, so the taping is done. Now I can put the bumper here, and I'm going to mount the other side, and I'm going to do the markings on this side. So on this side, I'm just going to mount 2 or 3 of these retaining clips, not all the way in, just to hold it in place, that's all. I just need to push the one side in. I'm not going to push the push pin in as well. I just really need to hold it in place. Okay, so this side is being held in place. As you can see, it can't move because I've just put in just a few of the retaining clips. You might even be able to see one. There's one there, just stopping it from shifting to the left or popping out. There's the clip, and as you can see, I'm putting it in tight. It's just to stop it from moving too much. Now I'm going to the other side. Now, once I put this side in place, it's going to exert pressure on the other side, and that is why I put those retaining clips there in the first place. All right, so I'm faced with the same problem here. This is a little bit back, while over here it is protruding. Now that protrusion is too much, so I have to shift it back. So as I said, I'm fine with about 2 to 3 millimeters. But the most important is that this lines up, but you do have a little bit of leeway there. So again, it's a bit of a compromise. You're going to have to go with what's suitable for your installation. All right, so I'm just going to hold this in place. Right, so I'm marking off the holes which are on the other side now. Now, because this is protruding outward, I've got to press this in at the same time while marking off the holes. Now, I can't do that as one person because just moving this just like that, and I've already stuffed up the entire alignment. So what I'm going to do is remove this now, drill the holes which I've just marked off, then put the bumper back, put some retaining clips on this side and some on the other side, and then depress this. But this side will no longer move because of the retaining clips. If you've got someone to help you, then you won't need to do this additional step. Someone could press this in while you're marking it off. Right, so you can see the markings all very clear. So I'm just going to drill them. Some places you might find that the retaining clip, it's a bit snug there, so just check that there's enough space. As you can see, this is the capsule for the spare wheel, and there is enough space. It didn't really matter if I drilled into this because there are holes anyway for the water, just in case water got in here. Right, so I've put the lip back in, and I've put 2 retaining clips on the one side and a few on the other side, and as you can see, it's quite stiff, so it's not easily movable. And now I can actually get underneath and deform this, or actually bend this. So what I'm doing is I'm really trying to get these two to align. Now, if I didn't put the press clips in, I would be shifting the alignment as I move this, and then the whole thing would be out of alignment. Now, because it's fastened on that side, it's fastened on the other side, now, as you can see, I can shift this in. So what I'm doing is I'm going to get underneath, align these, and then draw my markings. So instead of it being like this, I will depress it and then mark it. So I'll go like that, and then I'll mark it, and then when I push the push pins in place, it'll stay like that. Now this side's a little bit more tricky because there isn't anything here. Because of the exhaust, there's actually nowhere to mount it except for this little corner here. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to push that in and align it to that corner. All right, I'm just putting the tape there so I know where I'm marking it. Right, so the next step now is to just mark off the final holes. All right, so I push this in and I marked the last holes. So I have now marked all the holes while this was under pressure. See, this is the bumper and this is the lip. So what I did is I actually pulled the lip a bit backwards and then marked them off. So I've done that both sides now, and now I can take it off again, drill the final holes, and then I can actually glue it on and put it on finally. Now, if you are concerned that you haven't quite got the alignment 100%, the lip part, it doesn't matter if you make the holes just a little bit bigger, it's fine, as long as they're not big on the bumper side. So, I mean, you can just go over it with a slightly bigger drill bit. Now, the next step is to clean it with alcohol, because we're going to put a sealant on top here. Right, so I'm just taking a silicone sealant and I'm just squirting it on here. Right, so I'm just going to align one of the retaining clips now, making sure that I don't get the silicone everywhere. So I'm going in very carefully, following the clip. There we go. I'm actually pushing the clip in. So every retaining clip I push in now, I'm actually putting it with the pin right now. So I'm going to do the corner here. I'm actually going to put the pin and the clip in, and this will be the final time. Right, so all I need to do is press in the push pins. There's one missing there, and I just need to seat them one by one. Right, now I just have a look at the sealant. Right, so there's the sealant. As you can see, that'll dry after about 24 hours. Right, so there you can see all the push pins are in, the retaining clips, and I've even used some other ones for some very difficult positions. A little trick is to use a long screwdriver. As you can see, there's a very long screwdriver, and then just with your other hand you can press over here, so it allows you to press at a distance because you can't get your fingers right there. Now notice that I did put these push pins quite close to the edge. It's very important to go quite close to the edge, but not right at the edge, otherwise the head of the retaining clip will not fit in here. Now, reason why I went right to the end is because if you don't, what will happen is you will see there will be a space between the bumper and the lip. You see here, if I didn't have those push pins right towards the end, then this would separate a little bit, so that is why I use the push pins right at the end. You see there, and I've just got this yoga block just to support it and hold it in place until that silicone completely dries. But actually I just want to show you, if I do remove this, you can see it's not going to move because the push pins are holding in place, but just to add some additional support, just to let that sealant dry, there's my little block which is held by this little chair here. Right, here are some photos of the completed installation. I have overexposed some so that you can see more clearly the transitions. So this is actually very overexposed. All right, thanks for watching and cheers.